Did you kind of, in the back of your mind, feel all along that Pete would be back, or were there a lot of moments when you thought, as was kind of indicated publicly, that you might have to turn the page?
Well, yeah, I mean, we wanted him back. He's a great Met. I mean, really excited for him to chase down the Met home run record this year. I think the fans are really going to be into it. He finishes off what I think a great lineup. It was important for Pete to be part of that lineup.
So I guess it finally took that summit conference with you and David Stearns and Pete's agent, Scott Boras, to get it all done with Pete there as well.
Well, it was my idea. I just felt that the negotiation had gone on so long. I just wanted to make sure that he heard from us how we felt about him. I just felt like he deserved that respect. He's been a great Met for a long time. He's a fan favorite. And I thought there was a real opportunity to sit down with him and kind of hash it out. And so David and I flew down to Tampa, had a great conversation over a few hours. And frankly, Pete did all the talking. I mean, Scott Boras was there.
Really?
And Scott didn't say a freaking word the whole time. And it was like I turned to him, I go, I just want to make sure your pulse is, you're still breathing over there. Okay. Because
That's not easy, by the way.
yeah, that was like I was surprised.
Hi, fans, and welcome to a very special edition of Meet the Apple podcast. I'm Howie Rose, and I don't know, I've been kind of rolling something around in my head because, full disclosure, we are recording this on Valentine's Day, which I think is kind of fitting because last year's New York Mets, I think, really enabled their fans to rekindle their love affair with the New York Mets. A little schmaltzy. All right, maybe we'll
No,
go with
that's
it for
pretty good.
now.
That's pretty good, Howie. I hadn't thought
That work
about
for you?
that
All right.
connection.
But of course, the star of this show today is the owner of the New York Mets, Steve Cohen, and this has become kind of an annual rite of spring doing this Meet the Apple podcast. I look forward to it every year, and hopefully you do too, Steve.
Yeah, listen, that's when I know baseball is starting and we're getting going. So, yeah, looking forward to having a good conversation.
Well, let's start with, I guess, the most recent major news, and that, of course, was the re-signing of Pete Alonso, and it really was kind of the theme of this offseason, even with the signing of Juan Soto that we'll get to in a little while. But did you kind of, in the back of your mind, feel all along that Pete would be back, or were there a lot of moments when you thought, as was kind of indicated publicly, that you might have to turn the page?
Well, yeah, I mean, we wanted him back. I kept asking David Stearns, I go, you sure you want him back? He goes, yeah, we want him back. Okay, so that was the refrain. And frankly, I mean, I know he was talking to other teams. And so you never know, just because you want him back doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to actually get him back. And so, but we always wanted him back. I mean, he's a great Met. I mean, I'm really excited for him to chase down the Met home run record this year. I think the fans are really going to be into it. Um, and frankly, he finishes off what I think a great lineup. And it was important for Pete to be part of that lineup.
And for those who don't know, what Steve's alluding to is the fact that if Pete stays healthy, then sometime this summer, I believe he's 25 home runs away now from becoming the Mets' all-time home run leader. And there's a lot of cachet to that too, because this is not an expansion franchise anymore. They came into business in 1962, so this is going to be the 64th year that the New York Mets have been in business. So that record's going to mean something, and that's one of the reasons I know, Steve, why so many people felt emotionally invested in Pete coming back. So I guess it finally took that summit conference with you and David Stearns and Pete's agent, Scott Boras, to get it all done with Pete there as well. But what was the genesis of that? Had you thought about maybe trying to do that earlier? Or how was that whole thing created before you finally met in Florida?
Well, it was my idea, and I just felt that the negotiation had gone on so long. I just wanted to make sure that he heard from us how we felt about him. And it's hard to know when everything is done through third parties, and um, certainly in a long negotiation, you want to make sure that he's feeling good about coming back to the Mets. We wanted him to come back to the Mets. And I like to personalize things. I just felt like he deserved that respect. He's been a great Met for that long, for a long time. He's a fan favorite, and I thought there was a real opportunity to sit down with him and kind of hash it out. And so David and I flew down to Tampa, had a great conversation over a few hours, and frankly, Pete did all the talking. I mean, Scott Boras was there,
Really?
and Scott didn't say a freaking word the whole time. And it was like I turned to him, I go, I just want to make sure your pulse is, you're still breathing over there, okay? Because
That's not easy, by the way.
yeah, that was like I was surprised, but Pete had a lot to say. It was great to hear from him. He clearly expressed his desire to come back. We expressed our desire to have him come back, and we walked out of there feeling really good. And I was glad that we connected that way, and I think it mattered.
What was that the first time that you had spoken directly to Pete since the end of the playoffs?
That's right. Yeah, it was really the first time. I mean, the protocol is you go through the agents, and that's how it normally works. And so trying to respect sort of the protocols. But I just thought there was an opportunity here to do something um, I think important, and clearly the baseball operations people wanted him back, and so I was just trying to figure out a way to kind of talk to Pete, hear him out. I think we did that, and I wanted Pete to come back feeling good about coming back to the Mets, excited about the 25 season.
And is this the kind of thing that because of the option, you're prepared to go through again next year if it comes to that? Or is there a chance you could have conversations during this season to try to perhaps amend that deal too?
Yeah, listen, I mean, we're open. We're excited by the 25 season, and listen, I hope Pete has a tremendous season, and that would be great for the Mets, certainly great for him, and hopefully, that means that we can figure out a way to extend the arrangement. We'll worry about it when we worry about it down the road, but right now we're focused on the 25 season.
And what's encouraging is that you said that Pete's the one that did most of the talking because I think a lot of people felt that maybe his feelings were hurt or his emotions were going to be a little bruised because of the length of the negotiations. But was that all smoothed over as far as you could sense?
Yeah, it wasn't like he was hurt or I just that process. A lot of that has to do with the way the CBA, which is the collective bargaining agreement, when you put a QO on somebody, the qualifying offer, it tends to depress the value of the player,
Right.
and we've seen that in multiple instances with other players in the league. And Pete was caught in that kind of same predicament. And I'm a believer in markets, and so we certainly got enough data points of players that in that range, you would say other first basemen, other players in the same age, within a couple of years,
Mhm.
the same age range, that we had enough data points that we kind of thought our bid was reasonable, and fair, and so that's why we stuck to that bid, and when we got down there, I improved it just, well, we gave different alternatives. So Pete could have an opportunity to take a 2-year deal, a 3-year deal, and he chose the 2-year deal, and that's what we're operating under.
And so that really completes a lineup now where the centerpiece, at least in terms of the big addition over the winter, was Juan Soto. And down the road, maybe Mets fans look back on that Sunday, December 8th, as an important day in Mets history because the news finally broke. And again, I've seen where you were quoted saying that there were a lot of times during the period you were negotiating when you felt it wasn't going to happen. So take us through the last few hours before it finally was sealed.
Yeah, I'd gotten a call from Scott late in the afternoon of that Sunday saying that be ready, that there may be an opportunity to put myself right in the middle of the mix for Juan. And I mean, there were a lot of ups and downs during the negotiations. We had multiple meetings. Um, I walked out of the second meeting with Juan and Scott thinking, oh boy, there's no way that we're going to land this person, this player. and just didn't get a positive feeling. So when I got that call Sunday, I was like, wow, okay. I mean, that's great. I mean, we actually may have a shot. Didn't know if it was a realistic shot, but we're certainly still in the game. And I actually went to dinner in Fort Lauderdale with a friend of mine and was ordering food and drinks and going out in the lobby to have conversations with Scott and coming back in. And came in the first time after speaking to Scott, said, no way we're getting the player. We're just too far apart. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, we're 5 million apart. And we kind of, Scott came down. I actually changed my bid slightly. And we got there and still didn't know for sure if we are going to get him. And we worked it out. And I'm thrilled to death to have Juan Soto playing for the Mets for a very long time.
And one of the words that we heard associated with key factors in getting Juan signed was the family atmosphere that, clearly has developed here over the last few years. And your wife, Alex, has had so much to do with that. I know it goes back to when Max Scherzer signed. He was talking about the need to upgrade what had been the previous family facilities for the kids so that the young ones had stuff to do during the game if they weren't necessarily paying attention to the game. But how much of what Juan's concerns were about family and how he would connect to the Mets in that sense. And of course, he may build a family well down the road that will be central to this whole point. How much did that factor into the negotiations?
I mean, hard to know. I still am not sure exactly what were the major drivers that made Juan decide to come with the Mets. I think the family thing definitely helped. He's got a big extended family, and he had the opportunity to meet my family. I flew my father-in-law, who's 93 years old, out. It went all the way cross country from New York to LA to be at that meeting. My son came out. Obviously, Alex was there, and so he got to meet the entire family. Uh, I think it became clear to him that family's important to us. Alex does an amazing job with the families, with the parents, and our commitment to them and making their experience as easy and seamless as possible so the players can focus on what they do best, which is play ball.
Well, it's going to be exciting to have Juan Soto as a Met for a long, long time, potentially.
Absolutely.
But,
Yeah.
he's kind of the centerpiece, as I mentioned, of everything that happened during the off season. But, there's another component to the game, too, because we've talked about the lineup and how it stretches so effectively now with Pete kind of the finishing touch there. But as far as the pitching is concerned, David Stearns has had an approach that a lot of general managers in baseball increasingly are adopting now, and that is be careful about long-term commitments, not only to pitchers, but certainly players in their 30s, but especially pitchers too. And David was very successful last year in putting together a pitching staff that, might not have had the wow factor in terms of the names from top to bottom, but he got an awful lot out of them. So you were able to bring Mania back. You were able to, fix the bullpen, bring in AJ Minter and such. What is it about David's eye for those kinds of deals? And I know the pitching lab that you have that's been so well received and talked about. What is it that enables David to put together a pitching staff that might not have the star power of some others?
Yeah, listen, he's just good at, I mean, building a staff and looking for the right type of players who've had success in the past, maybe had a down season, and hopefully the opportunity to bounce back. I think the team has done a really great job, beginning with the coaches, Jeremy Hefner. Um, Pitchers want to pitch for us because we're developing a reputation for taking what a pitcher has and improving them. And that's always been one of my goals in the organization is to, being able to develop players and improve them. And developing that reputation means that players will want to come to us and play for us. And so, each situation is unique. Each situation is a little bit different. And so I think because of how we go about um, improving pitching performance and pitchers in general, that we can take pitchers other teams may not be particularly interested in, and we'll see something that we think we can improve on.
And I know you've talked since the very first press conference you had when you became the owner that your ultimate goal was not only to build a winner, but to build a sustainable winner, something that provided a model that you can work from and have success virtually every year, despite the fact that nothing's guaranteed in this game. But along those lines now, it's been reported that there are some pitchers still available, but you've been able to maintain to a man, really, the entirety of the group of your best prospects from the farm system so far this winter. I'm sure that's by design, but is that still subject to change if the right opportunity comes along for a veteran pitcher, even if he's a rental, even if it's a short-term kind of deal, where you would give the green light to give up a couple of what are considered the best prospects in the organization?
Well, I'll leave that to the baseball people to decide, what they want to do and when they want to do it. But hold on here. Sorry. Should have put that on no ring, but which I'll do right now.
You didn't just trade prospects there,
That
did you?
that,
That would
that,
have.
that was another owner in baseball calling me.
Oh,
But actually, that would have been more interesting to hear that conversation.
oh, I'd
But,
love that.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, we have a lot of players that are on the upper levels of our farm system, and there's only so many spots, so it's hard to know what we're going to do with our prospects. But I think it's Mark Vientos was a great example of wait. He took advantage when the opportunity presented itself, and he ran with it. And so we're hopeful. We're hoping that can't tell you which player is going to break out this year, but when you get players like that and they break out, it really helps the team, not just in the short term, what's great for this year, but in the future too, because having cheaper, more controllable players allows us more flexibility in going to get the players that we really need, and a strong farm system. Obviously, not every prospect's going to make it, but a really strong farm system allows you to make moves and trades like we did last year at the trade deadline, to pick up help and support that we needed at that time. So it's part of what I've always wanted, was a really strong farm system. When you combine that with the ability to go out and get free agents at the appropriate time, it just gives you multiple arrows to shoot and creates hopefully is a pretty strong team.
Well, you mentioned Mark Vientos and his breakout season, and I suppose one of the reasons that he was able to maintain the success that he had, because there's a learning curve that goes on for young players. It requires adjustments, several adjustments over the course of a full season. But having Francisco Lindor next to him at shortstop meant a lot. And with the season Francisco had last year, certainly an MVP caliber season, although Shohei Ohtani had another worldly season. It was just amazing to watch the impact that Francisco had on so many different facets of the club last year. When you talk to Francisco and look at Francisco and go back to when you first acquired him, and maybe it took him a while to get used to New York and all, but what do you see now when you embrace what Francisco has become, not only on the field, but to the entire organization?
I mean, Francisco is a phenomenal player on both sides, defense, offense. He's become a leader, a real leader in the clubhouse. Um, and listen, I mean, Francisco is, um, I really enjoy him. I love the way he plays. I love the way he enjoys playing and the joy that he shows and going out there every day, and he posts every day. He's out there. He wants to play every game, and I mean, we're lucky to have him. He's been phenomenal.
I know that this is a baseball decision too. I know that'll probably end up getting punted to David, but you do have a huge investment financially in Francisco too. And as he gets to 30 years old and up, it's great that, as you say, he posts and he wants to play 162. But would you like to see Francisco maybe just pull back a little bit? And if it means playing 150 instead of 160 or 162, it might be for the long-term benefit of the club.
Yeah, I think, having some rest is probably not a bad thing. Trying to get him off the field, I don't know how they're going to pull that off. He wants to play, and so I'll leave that to Carlos to figure that out.
You know, it was unmistakable that there's a certain bond that you created with Francisco and vice versa since he got here. And sometimes we read too much into little things that we see, but there seemed to be a little extra emotion involved in some of the embraces that you and he enjoyed on the field in Atlanta after his big home run, after the grand slam that ultimately won game four against the Phillies and clinched the division series. Is there a unique bond between you and Alex and Francisco, would you say?
Yeah, listen, I mean, he's such a great guy, and I know how much he cares, and I really enjoy my relationship with him, and he's smart. He knows baseball. He's incredible with the fans. I mean, before the games, you'll see him, giving out autographs, and he doesn't have to do that, but he does it because he wants to interact. He's just, a great human being. I really enjoy our relationship, and it has been close. And so when the team has success like that, I'm feeling emotion, he's feeling emotion, and it's a great thing.
Well, you mentioned Carlos Mendoza and how he'll monitor Francisco's workload, but it's easy to forget now. Carlos was a rookie manager last year and seemed to pass every test with flying colors. How would you kind of rate your impression of Carlos as a first-year manager and your expectations for him this coming season and beyond?
Yeah, I think when I first interviewed him, I walked out of the room going, wow, I mean, this is a really optimistic, charismatic person. And he demonstrated it through the season. I mean, he walks into the first 2 months of 24. We're 11 games under 500. We've got a pitcher throwing his glove in in the stands. I mean, you can't imagine. I mean, that was the bottom, right? And he kept it together, kept his optimism, believed in our players, and I think that really mattered in what transpired afterwards.
I've said this on the air too, that I think there's a synergy that exists between ownership, the front office, and the dugout that has not been that cohesive, at least from, far back, as since the original owner of the Mets, Mrs. Joan Payson, and Gil Hodges, the manager, and Johnny Murphy, the general manager, produced a world championship in the Mets' eighth year of existence. When you consider that relationship, yourself and David and Carlos and everybody else in between, is this exactly the kind of sort of humming of an engine that you had hoped to achieve when you bought the team, or is there room for more? Is there room to even strengthen those bonds and professional relationships?
Yeah, listen, I mean, any time you can get management all rowing together and with the same philosophies, and all getting along in a really professional and an enjoyable way, um, I think it works. And we all know our lanes. Okay, like I don't interfere that much, unless I mean, I may have an opinion, but I don't force it on anybody. And I love the way David allows Carlos to to manage. Let him do his thing. I mean, David's willing to delegate, and you can't be everywhere, and so you want people who are really good at what they do. And so and I think we all get along really well, and I think that really matters.
Yeah, well, now look what you've done because you've raised the expectations to where I think there's as much anticipation going into this season as there's been in just about any other in Mets history. That's just how excited everybody got watching what unfolded last year, and particularly in the postseason. So how do you handle that when everybody's kind of gunning for you now, when
Yeah,
maybe they weren't last year?
I love it. Right? I mean, that means you're onto something. You're doing something well. Yeah, last year we might have been a little bit of an underdog, and now all of a sudden people are noticing, hey, this is a good team, and that's the way I want it. We want to come into every season with high expectations, expectations for ourselves of what we can accomplish, and so that's sort of how I run my business. I always have high expectations. I try to surround myself with the best people possible. That's what we've done at the Mets, and we're always in a constant state of improvement, regardless. I mean, expectations are expectations, but you got to go out and play. And so we really look good on paper, but we still got to play. Guess what? We got to play 162 games.
Well, we're all looking forward to that, and there's so much else we're looking forward to as well. Because one thing that you and Alex have done, of course, is embrace the tradition and the history of this franchise. And generally speaking, I think Seaver was the only other one who went into the Mets Hall of Fame and had his number retired on the same day. But July 19th is going to be such a special day in the history of the New York Mets, when effectively it will be David Wright Day. He'll go into the Mets Hall of Fame. He'll have his number 5 retired, which we kind of knew. Everybody knew that was coming. It was just a matter of when. So, could you take us back to when you told David this was all going to happen on the same day? What was that phone call like?
Yeah, I love. I mean, this was obviously putting someone in the Mets Hall of Fame and retiring a number the same day is unusual. We haven't done that, to your point, in a long time. Yeah, I love making that phone call. I mean, the excitement, the joy that David, uh, you can hear on the phone. It's so meaningful to the player. I mean, to be able to look up and see your number up on the rafters of Citi Field. I mean, it's got to be like, wow. I mean, how amazing is that? And so I'm excited for David. It's going to be a great day. He's a great Met. The fans love him. He's just a great person. As I've gotten to know him, I really enjoy his insights and the conversations we have. And so it's going to be an exciting day.
I know David's really enjoyed being a full-time dad over the last number of years. In your perfect world, would you like to see him take on some kind of a role in the Mets organization that's more than just ceremonial?
Yeah, we've had conversations. I mean, right now, to your point, he's focused on his family, but I'd be open always to those conversations.
Well, David's Day is going to be a very special one at Citi Field, but Citi Field itself is really something to behold when you put it in juxtaposition with Shea Stadium at a similar time in its history. It's hard for me to believe, but this is going to be the 17th year that the Mets have played at Citi Field. At that time in the history of Shea Stadium, Shea looked virtually decrepit. Now, the circumstances were different. Municipally owned ballpark. The city had well-known financial challenges in the 1970s. But this is a whole different thing now with Citi Field. There seem to be improvements every single year. Will Citi Field look in some ways different this year than it did last year and the year before?
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit. Not I would say it's this year a little bit more status quo. Um, but obviously, we care about the ballpark. We care about the ballpark experience. Um, my management team is always thinking about new ways to improve our fan experience in the ballpark, out of the ballpark. So we're focused on that and providing the best um, uh, engagement we can with our fans. And I love interacting with our fans, and they listen. They have great ideas. So I'll listen. I'll take a good idea from anybody.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? I used to say this to Charles Wang when he owned the Islanders, that you can be a wildly successful businessman and outside of the realm of your specific business, maintain a certain level of anonymity. You buy a sports team, and especially one as high profile as the Mets, everybody knows you, everybody recognizes you. So whereas fans might have been a little disgruntled before last season, you happy to be back to being Uncle Steve again? And do the fans embrace you
Well,
as such?
I'm not gonna react to how the fans perceive me. I'm gonna do the best I can to put the best team on the field and provide the best experience I can to our fans.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's better to be liked than not disliked. I mean, disliked. I mean, but in the end, I want to put the best product I can on the field. Um, and City Field is electric last year. Was
Mhm.
electric, and it was. And I think I look out and people look like to me they're having a blast at City Field. The game day presentation I think is A plus. The food's great. We've got a great team. And I'm sort of looking at 2025 as an important year for the fans. I mean, I've, you know, committed and highly committed to putting the best product on the field. I was a little disappointed in the attendance last year, given the quality of the team, and I'm hoping and that the fans come out this year because I just think it's a blast there, and I think I think they'll have a phenomenal time with a team that I'm excited by.
Historically, the attendance one year very often reflects the success or otherwise that a team might have had the year before. So, whereas things didn't go all that well in 23, and maybe that reflected last year, I would think that it's going to be a pretty tough ticket this year. And have you seen that in the preseason single game and even season ticket plan sales?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing an uplift, and I'm excited by that. And I just want it to be sustained because I remember being in the ballpark. I think we were playing the Nationals right before the final series with against Philadelphia, and we're right in the middle of the pennant race. I think there were 18,000 people in attendance at Citi Field, and I was like, "We're right in the middle of the pennant race. Where is everybody?" And so I'm hoping, expecting that the fans will come out and really enjoy a great product this year.
Well, one thing they love to pack the ballpark for, apart from just the team itself, are bobbleheads. It's amazing how sustainable the popularity of the bobbleheads have become. I think you're doing what, about 10 of them this year?
Yeah, I don't fully get the bobblehead thing, but the fans love it. I mean, how many bobbleheads can anybody have? I guess you can have a lot of them.
Hmm.
So listen, if that uh, gets our fans excited and get them out to the ballpark as an incentive to come out, I mean that's great. I just want them in the ballpark.
Yeah, they say that there are going to be at least 10 bobblehead giveaways, but do they talk? I don't think there are any other talking bobbleheads on the
What could be
schedule. So
better?
that's unique.
What could be better than a talking bobblehead?
That's it. Need a whole lot more of them. But I know you've got a concert too. Billy Joel's going to be at Citi Field this year,
Yeah,
right?
Billy Joel's coming. We have, I think we have 7 or 8 concerts this year.
So,
And yeah, I mean, Billy Joel is iconic in rock and roll history and certainly in New York. So that should be a great event.
all right. So there's a lot to be excited about around the New York Mets this year. And it's been a pleasure, as always, doing our annual preseason kickoff with Mets owner Steve Cohen. Steve, great to talk to you again. And we'll look forward to a phenomenal season.
Yeah, absolutely, Howie. Always enjoyed. I'll see you at the ballpark.
And we'll meet you at the Apple. I'm Howie Rose. Have a great day.